Hey, what do I say? I say, kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, New Zealand. How you all doing?
I got to tell you, like, for all of our jokes yesterday about putting money in the bucket for being late,
yeah,
it was almost me.
Oh man. How you doing? Yes, for people who don't know, because I didn't see, as I've seen Chewy so far this evening for about 7 seconds, and well, this is up to 13 seconds now. How are you, Chewy?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. First day back at work this week, and obviously they're ripping up the main road in town. It's good to try and have conversations with people while someone cuts through concrete right outside the shop.
Does that make business slower? Surely it's got to be somewhat slower.
No, I don't think it really affects where I work because it's more of a destination thing. People have to come and see us for various things anyway. Like
Yeah.
I was busy all day today, so yeah. No, I don't think it'll affect us too much.
Do you like the t-shirt? You like the Kia ora t-shirt?
I did. It's pretty good.
You like it?
Yeah. Nice retro look.
So something happened to me today. Should I share with the fun though? It's kind of not to do with what we're doing here, but it's to do with my other podcast. Or should I just? I'll show you something. I'll play you something, and people here, if you want to get benefit from this, I guess you can. Look, there's Mirror Me. Should I play you what this is?
Hang on. Now there's two of you.
Yep.
This is getting out of hand.
This has just happened in my Let's Talk Funny podcast. Hey, kia ora team. Today's episode is brought to you by Mr. Vintage. Mr. Vintage is New Zealand's most iconic t-shirt brand. Doesn't matter if it's a local pop cultural phenomenon, a sporting event, or even a New Zealand personality, there's every chance that Mr. Vintage has made a t-shirt for them and some product for it. Kiwi owned since 2004, selling Kiwiana t-shirts and gifts online. There's even a range of king sizes for us bigger fellas. Today, Mr. Vintage and us want to give you an extra special. How about 20% off any men's t-shirt? All you need to do is go to mrvintage.co.nz. In the checkout, use the promo code FUNNY, FUNNY, and you will get 20% off any men's t-shirt. Head to mrvintage.co.nz, enter the promo code FUNNY at checkout for 20% off any men's t-shirt. So it happened to me today, and that's what I've been doing today, and that's why I'm still
now. I have seen some subtle product placement before, and that was not it. No, I like Mr. Vintage stuff.
That's from my other podcast, but I guess if people want to utilize it here, they're more than welcome to, and that they can do that, or they can listen out and check out Let's Talk Funny. Let's Talk Funny is the podcast that I do with comedians, and they are one of the sponsors that have come on board for that. Sponsors, advertisers is probably a better word, but there you go. So there's where I got my t-shirt from. I quite like it.
Nice.
Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. And kia ora to everybody. Look at all these people always saying g'day and giving, I think that's giving us that, isn't it? Yo, what's up? Hang loose. I think that's the hang loose sign. We're going with that. G'day, David. G'day, Peter. G'day, Simon. G'day, Paul. G'day, JN. And I've scared away Peter. He's doing some t-shirt shopping. Good on you, mate. All right. So we're here, we're back, and I will get to some bits and pieces shortly, but I want to talk again about The Last of Us very quickly before we get on to things, because because I wasn't aware of this, and I'm going to be careful here because I don't want to put out any spoilers. I'm actually not sure whether there is spoilers in this because there's actually a little bit of audio, but one of the creators, one of the people who are working on Last of Us, has been praising Weta for the work that they've done on the series in and of itself. Let's have a listen to what they
that
had to say.
explains something. Yeah, I saw a New Zealand Film Commission logo at the end of the other episode, and I was just like, "Oh, hang on, what's our link? Of course, it's Weta."
Yeah, of course it's
Of
Weta.
course.
So let's have a listen to what this is from the podcast, the Last of Us podcast, what they had to say about Weta,
Which is
the most
excellent,
complicated
by the
thing I've ever done, for sure, in terms of production difficulty. And while you're doing it, you are always aware that you are creating what's going to work out to be a few minutes. And that's
Almost
where we have to talk about Weta.
Weta FX, which of course is the digital visual effects company. It's based in New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Right now, the world is kind of dealing with a visual effects shortage. Doesn't seem like it because everything has visual effects, but everybody is using more and more visual effects to help produce and tell stories, to the point where there aren't enough artists on the planet to fulfill all the demand of content, especially as content has exploded on television. So when you reach out to these companies, you are not necessarily just haggling over price. At some point, you're just like, do you want to work on this? Because they have their choice. And then there obviously are levels of expertise within companies. One of the great things for us is that all of these places we talked to were like, The Last of Us. I mean, huge overlap in visual effects and gaming. And so we got the best of the best. And in this sequence, nobody does creature work the way Weta does. Nobody. They are the best. And what they did here is so phenomenal.
Yep.
If you study it carefully, there will maybe moments where you're like, okay, that one's VFX, but that one's real. But I guarantee you won't get it all right.
It's really hard to tell.
It's really beautifully blended.
Now, I'm being careful. I'm going to take the screen off here so people don't see spoilers. They're talking about a specific scene within episode 5. And and I'll read this out to you, then I'll show you something. But as a part of this scene, which we won't talk about the scene because it's a spoiler, but for the first time, you see a character called a bloater. Did you know about the bloater before watching it? The bloater is a very large and fearsome beast that is a person who has been infected with the what is it called? What a mushroom?
Fungus, cordyceps.
Yep, for years without perishing. So there's a scene which we're not going to talk about, but in that scene, there's one of these. This is from the Last of Us Wiki, and I think what they're suggesting is Weta has been involved in bringing these sorts of creatures to life in the Last of Us. And I just saw with our chat last night, and we seem to be, be talking about this a bit more without revealing anything. When we saw this dude pop up, or dudette, it's a being, whatever it is. New Zealand and Weta got a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's too much of a spoiler because they did tease it a couple of weeks back.
Well, but what happens in that event to characters around, and that I mean, it's best not to talk about the actual thing that happens, because it does culminate a part of a storyline. And people aren't there yet, so we'll respect that for another week. I like it when people are like, spoiler alerts for things like Breaking Bad. I'm like, dude, like 2014.
Yeah, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I'm going to check this up again. You've shown the image. I'm not going to talk about what happens.
Yep.
But I think when it comes to special effects, we've reached a point where they've realized something. You can't just do everything as a CGI character.
Yeah.
That sometimes you need to have the blending of a real physical thing. So that art of prosthetics, of having a real actor there, that's still really valid.
Yeah.
So to do the visual effects that they were talking about, this is what they did. So they have a 6 foot tall actor wearing this suit, and then they've basically scanned it. You can see all of the cameras in the background there, full 360 ultra high definition scan of the whole thing. So they digitize the image, and then they can just improve the look. And it'll move like a real person. It'll interact with people because it's a real person. But just looking at that and just going, oh my God, that is horrific. Apparently one of the actors hadn't seen it before they went live, and it was literally scared the hell out of him.
I love it when directors sort of look at scare or shock their other actors. There's a famous scene in Alien, spoilers, 1981, when it pops out of the chest, and apparently the actors in that scene didn't quite know what was going to happen, and so the reaction to the blood and that kind of stuff from that is genuine from those people. I'm looking for a scene as well, because there is a scene from Avatar that broke the internet, the new Avatar, which was the water. There was a water scene. I found a still of it while you were talking, but I haven't found the actual video for it. It's this shot here. And I follow these guys called Corridor Crew. I don't know if you know much about Corridor
Oh yes,
Crew.
I love that channel.
Yeah. So I follow them, and this scene here, this was you can look this up yourself. This scene here, with this in the it was both in the trailer and in the movie, broke the internet because the debate was, is it real or is it CG? And one of the things they were saying is, like, the way the water beads over this matting here, it must be real. And the latest episode of Corridor Crew, they finally got someone in from Weta to talk about it. And what I was going to do to expand on what you're saying is about, is it real or is it CG? It's both. It's like this hand is real, and this part of the arm is real, and the strap is real, and everything else is CG. And that's how they're doing it now. They're combining CG and real, real application, and getting the best of both worlds. I guess the things where CG is still a little bit behind, and they're using real things, real physical things, and then they're putting CG on top of them and helping with them. And it's really interesting to see what they're doing with technology at the moment, especially in movies.
Yeah, thoroughly recommend that Corridor Digital channel for anybody that's interested, even a partial interest in how special effects is done, and how animation is done, and how stunt work is done.
Yeah,
any interest in film and stuff, it's a gold mine.
Do you know what it is? And I like watching documentaries. It's actually about, if you're interested in the creative process, because even if you're not a person who is into special effects, and that, them explaining how things happen is them explaining the creative process. Like I've always said, for me, the documentaries I love most of all are things like Back and Forth by the Foo Fighters, that talks about how they make their albums, are things like 6 Days to Air, which is the guys from South Park, how they make an episode. I love watching things that explain the creative process. Corridor Crew are a group that explain the creative process, along with explaining, special effects and graphics, and having some fun along the way as well. So yeah, very much so. Right, let's basically get into the show. But before we do that, of course, we have to say kia ora and g'day to our lovely patrons. Thank you for being on board. Well, our lovely patrons, if you notice there's a new name there, Gareth Wallace, who decided to sign up whilst he was watching the show last night. I appreciate you, Gareth, and everybody else who was there as well. Gareth said a really interesting thing last night after he signed up to be one of our patrons. And that interesting thing was, I've been a lurker for a while, which I kind of love, actually. So in other words, Gareth's been a part of our audience for a long time. In fact, we were talking just about a couple of you guys. When we finished the show last night, me and Chippy were talking about 2 or 3 of you guys by name, and kind of going, it's really nice to see that these people are still hanging around and are still with us. And without putting words into Gareth's mouth, he obviously got to a point where he went, well, I've been lurking for a while, and I've been enjoying the content, and so now I want to help out. And we love that. We love you if you're not helping out financially, and we love you if you are helping out financially. As we know, Chewy made this very clear the other day. If you do become a patron for us, you are immediately 22% more attractive. And so thank you to all these fantastic people who are on our Patreons at the moment. And if you want to be a part of what we do, and if you want to support us and help us, pay for the light bills and the odd cup of coffee and pay for our broadcast software, then all you can do is head to patreon.com/big hairy news. So thank you thank you all. It's lovely to have you all on board. Righty ho, sir. Let's talk about shit, shall we? That's how the professionals talk. They talk about shit. I think what we're going to do is, I think we are obviously still, and look, I'll be honest with you. I'm not shocked. I'm probably, because I'm away from it being in Dunedin, I'm still really shocked, surprised at the impact that is still happening today. I heard a report today that said something about streets in a certain part, it might have been Whangarei, certain part of Northland, streets were still underwater 5 days after the rain first started. And I'm like, this is new. Like, I mean, Chewy, you said the other night you don't want to hear the term unprecedented anymore, but even amongst all the times we've heard the word unprecedented, this is fucking unprecedented. You know what I'm saying? Because this is very new. This is very different. So tonight, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to skip around a few stories about what's going on with the cyclone. We are going to have a look. David Seymour has started to walk back his comments a little bit. Well, you know what he did? He sort of started to walk back his comments a little bit, almost like he watched last night's BHN and realized that he'd misread the room, but then he couldn't quite help himself and he kind of then doubled down. So he walked back and then he doubled down. It was like he was sort of climbing a sand dune. Don't know if you've ever been up a really big sand dune, how you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's sort of what he did. He took 1 step back though, and then he went 2 steps forward and kind of doubled down. So we'll have a look at what did you call him last night? That giant dingus talked about today.
Yep.
I've got
a giant dingus. And David, if you are watching,
hi mate.
Just remember, subscribe to the Patreon.
If you're a believer in free speech, David Seymour, you should sign on to like one of our higher plans. It should be $2.50 a month.
And
surely
you know
that would be.
Use that coupon code for Mr. Vintage. Get a t-shirt that says I'm not a giant dingus. I don't know.
All right, let's have a look at this is TVNZ story tonight, and I want to play this pretty much in full because John Campbell is in Gisborne. Funny, I was talking to my dad tonight. My dad was born in Invercargill, but sort of grew up in Gisborne, and it was interesting hearing him about how much it's impacting him seeing what's happening in the place where he grew up as a teenager. And like we've had holiday homes in Northland since I was born, basically, so forever. And I said to him on the phone, I went, interesting, Dad, because you've probably spent more time in Northland than you have in Gisborne. And he goes, yeah, I know, but it just, there's something about it. So it's, you know, for people who are still there, obviously we're thinking about you most of all, but for people who are connected to these areas as well, it's like this is big. So this is one news tonight, and this is obviously that golden fox, Simon Dallow, and then he throws it across to the other golden fox, silver fox, John Campbell, as they talk about what's going on primarily in Gisborne.
In Gisborne, the cyclone combined with closed roads and the region's isolation.
Ooh, don't do this to us tonight, internet. See what happens when I don't download things? Maybe I'll just refresh it and then hit play again, just because then we can have a clear and easy path. Here we go. Do it again. Dun, 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 dun,
In Gisborne, the cyclone combined with closed roads and the region's isolation means they're beginning to run low on crucial items. Petrol and food are being rationed to make sure supplies last until roads reopen. But in the most bitter of ironies, after all the flooding, it's the city's water supplies that appear to be most at risk. John Campbell's there.
At the end of this storm-battered road is the main reservoir supplying Gisborne's water. This is a rescue mission of sorts, and a city's water supply depends on it. The pipe carrying Gisborne's water passes.
Oh, let's hope this doesn't happen through the evening. Come on, the silly websites. Whilst it's thinking about it, if only the government had some sort of idea to help fix that infrastructure of pipes that carry water to and fro, Chewy. Only there was some way that some of these areas that need infrastructure
now's not
upgrades.
the time to talk about the resilience of our water infrastructure, Pat.
It's not. Now's not the time. When's the time?
At a time where it's not causing us any problems.
Down the hill through storm-logged farmland.
Oh, this is going to annoy me if this keeps doing this. Right, Chewy, tell us a joke while I go and see if this is on YouTube.
Okay, fun fact for a comedian, that never works. Look, I'm going to talk about a couple of stories around this that I've been reading up on today. I see Dr. Shane Retty reached out to Elon Musk, cap in hand, and said, "Oh, Mr. Elon, sir, it'd be awfully good if you could see to it to send us a couple of dozen Starlink terminals." And it really made me think. I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I'm not even particularly a fan of Starlink.
Right.
You know, I don't like the idea of a freight train of tiny disposable satellites flying around the Earth. But in circumstances like this, where our communications infrastructure just got pounded, like cell towers are down, fiber cables are down, you really can't argue with the utility of something like Starlink.
Yeah, and we're going to have a look at. I've got a story up here today from the Herald, and thank God it's not got video, so it's not going to frickin' freeze on us. Talking about, it's actually from a columnist there, Chris Keel, talking about 3 doable initiatives to help with our infrastructure when it comes to communications. So we'll get to that as well. But just thanks for the pad. That was very smooth, Chewy. No one noticed it.
Much of the water Gisborne drinks and showers in comes through here, and every storm-smashed bridge it passes across is another cyclone risk point.
I know at least 8 or 9 lots of bridges out there as well, so there are some areas that in between our water dams and the treatment plant, but also some areas the 30 kilometres to town, 40 kilometres to town, so it's an extensive fix.
Yes, this pipe stretches all the way into the city. It was a patchwork already. Water, roads. This is a region where infrastructure was under intense pressure before Gabrielle.
If only they had something to help with that infrastructure, you know?
Undergone some significant damage. And like some of our other infrastructure, we're not talking days, we're talking weeks, months.
In town, it's food thereafter. It's life, yes, but not normal life.
But not as you know it.
Patient
Spock.
queues, a rationing system for who knows how long. And what are you after?
Nappies, milk, bread, just the essentials for my kids.
It's the basic stuff, eh?
Yeah.
You're running out at home.
Yes, we're down to the last nappy.
Petrol stations, some were closed, others open and packed, cash-only transactions with no EFTPOS. Are you listening, Minister?
I think that a local community here and actually in regions up and down the country that have been significantly impacted by Gabrielle, hail, the events of Auckland anniversary can have full confidence that central government is going to exactly do right that, hand in hand, walk alongside each other, because this is a national challenge that we've got to embrace.
John's with us now. John, you've been on the East Coast for the past few days now. What have you learnt in that time about just how long the impact of Cyclone Gabrielle will be felt?
Amazing to hear Kitty Tapu-Allan in that story saying that it will be weeks and even months before State Highway 35 is rectified. If you're watching up State Highway 35 and you are still cut off, you haven't been forgotten. Helicopters will be going into Ruatoria and adjacent.
So we're going to leave it there because I'm not going to play this game tonight with the internet for some reason. But a couple of things here. One of the reasons I wanted to play that was this idea of, as people have been saying, you know, as we've been saying, as others have been saying, and it started the conversation again when Auckland had its trouble, that there is calls for fixing infrastructure. We have talked on this show for a long time about Gore as an example because they're our neighbour and we know them. But we can go to Gisborne. It was already a taped together system, right? It was already on its last legs. I don't know what the numbers are for Gisborne, but I guarantee it'll be something like Gore, which is $300 million to fix the infrastructure. So therefore, how do we get the infrastructure in these outlying areas that don't have the ratepayer base to pay for it fixed? The answer is we get it funded from central government. If only we could come up with a fucking way, an idea, a plan, if you will, that central government could fund infrastructure around the country. Obviously the facetious nature of my commentary and the sarcasm that I'm using is not lost on anybody, but this is exactly it. I really hope that this is going to be the nail in the coffin of the pushback against Three Waters and the actual thing that drives it through. Yes, maybe there'll be some adjustments. Yes, maybe there'll be some concessions to the lunatics on the right, but this will be the catalyst to actually finally get the taxpayers union via the National Party and Act to stop getting groundswell to whip up people based around racial rhetoric, as opposed to those pipes we were just watching going under those bridges. Chewy.
Could this be the return of the glorious Ministry of Works?
I doubt it.
Oh, it'd be a really good idea. We got a lot of bridges and stuff. I noticed a lot of people mentioning in the chat phone tower, cell towers. They only have a small battery backup that lasts 4 to 8 hours. That is correct. They're only ever there to handle small, isolated outages and brownouts and that sort of thing. And we can really see that may not be enough in a true disaster. And we see how reliant people are now on those connections.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty bad.
I was on the, speaking of brownouts, I had a good brownout this afternoon. I'm feeling much better as well. I lost about 2 kilos.
Gross.
I did the panel yesterday afternoon on Today FM, and this was one of the questions we asked. Are we too dependent on current technology? And I'm a bit like this, yeah. I'm like, this is how technology goes. And the example I gave on yesterday, man, that's weird saying that, was I'm sure once the car took over the horse as the main transport, there would have been times where people were in their front yard unable to start their car going, fuck, I wish I still had a horse. But this is what happens with technology. We move forward, we move on, and then when something happens where older technology would be more used, we kind of go back and go, but maybe we should keep some of the older stuff as well. I get it, but this is not the idea of older technology being a part of our daily lives today is not isolated to this. I've told the story several times. Let's say Kodak film, right? Once we went to digital everywhere, Kodak film folded. Now, if there was a massive power outage over the whole world and people wanted to take photos, they'd be going, if only we had Kodak film again. But then, 3 days later, when all the power came back, they'd be going, oh, thank God we've got our digital cameras back. So I'm not saying this as a way to minimize what's going on. I'm just being a realist and going, we don't step backwards with technology, because when we step backwards, we can have the same conversations. Oh shit, if only we didn't have to rely on these horses. I mean, my horse is lame and now I'm stuck. What can I do? It's the same all the way through. It's just heightened in these moments of emergencies that make us look at what could and should be. Now, I'm quite a big believer in over prepping. One of the reasons I'd like to build a house one day is I'd like to dump water tanks in the ground. I'd like to put solar power on the roof. I'd like to have that as an option. But 364 days, well, it might be more like 350 days because the power's going to be out for a long time. 350 days of the year, when we think about going back to a rotary phone or something else, we go, don't be stupid, because we have our cell phones. In those 2 weeks at the moment that it's going to be a problem, we look wistfully on the way it used to be. I mean, should we keep going? Should we go to Morse code? Because that was before the telephones, and that was probably more secure than a telephone. And so I'm not saying this to minimize the conversation, but I am saying this as a realist going, this happens with technology all the time. We have digital television now. Back in the day where we all had UHF aerials, if the digital stuff goes down, we'll be going, oh, if only we had UHF aerials. It's what happens, and we move forward and we adapt and we change the way we operate things.
Yeah, it's people's requirements for the technology does not match that old tech. We're moving away from copper phone lines now because they're too expensive to maintain. The copper phone lines are not going to deal with the entirety of Gisborne trying to get online to tell people that they're okay. Yeah. I'm sure David here has a really good point to make. But because they didn't teach Morse code to me in high school, I don't know what that says. It's probably a swear word. He's probably.
Can we copy that off and put it into a Morse code?
I do know that what it is. David, that's disgusting.
Dash dot isn't dash dot sos? Dash dot
yes. But that's
we can't screen. I'd screen grab. I'm surely there's an online translator.
I'll do that. We're going to fact check that, David.
Yeah, there might be disinformation. Gosh, what's going on there? Look, I just think as well, and again, not to minimize what's going on, but in 1955 or whatever it was, when there was the earthquake in Region X, we just knuckled down. We didn't have to inform the world. We're fine. Individual. We didn't have to mark on fucking Facebook, marks themselves safe. We just got on with it, And I'm not saying this as a boomer to go like, oh, yeah, things used to be better. I'm just saying we've become, maybe I am coming back to this, reliant. It's not just reliant on the technology. It's like reliant on our ability to spout stuff anytime, anywhere. And it's okay. It's okay. You know, if it takes a day or 2 or 3 to get your communications back and you're safe, then your family will hear from you in a day or 2 or 3. And in an emergency, these are the things. It's okay. It's going to be okay. You know, we don't. And if you're a family outside of the region wondering how your family is, these things happen, and you'll have to wait. And I know it'll be stressful. I know it'll be bad for you, but you'll get there, and it'll be okay. I had a friend when I was at Teachers Training College who got a cell phone, like, because this was the early 90s, Chewy, when we were just starting to get cell phones. And she got a cell phone, and she used to live in Tauranga, and she drove from Tauranga to Auckland quite a lot. And she got and she got a cell phone. And I said, why have you got a cell phone? Silly conversation you think everyone's got today. And she went, oh, you know, I just want to have it for safety driving between Auckland and Tauranga. And I went, have you ever had a problem driving between Auckland and Tauranga? And she went, no. So you've now taken on board new technology for a problem that's never happened before, and that's the rationale behind it. So again, I'm not playing down anybody's serious issues with these areas that are cut off, but I'm also going, we've gotten to a point in technology where if we can't Instagram it, it's like, we better head off to The Hague then. These crimes are that serious. It's okay. We're all right. We'll get through, and you're okay. You know, not being able to communicate immediately. If you have to wait till tomorrow, you're going to be okay. Anyway,
it's interesting to think about these issues because, like, yes, we are so used to the way that our society is now, everything is instant, everything is cashless, and we really notice the limits of that when things go tits up. And like during the guts of the pandemic, the real, you know, when people were locking down and that sort of thing, again, people stressing that they couldn't immediately come home.
Yeah.
You know, it's stressful and it's frustrating, and you've just got to deal with it. Yeah. Like during all the COVID stuff, the one thing that stuck in my head is when people went off to war or when they used to travel, you wouldn't hear from someone for months at a time until their letter came by boat. And that wasn't that long ago in the scheme of things.
Yeah, no, and look, again, I want us to be careful because if people are out there and they're anxious and they're stressed because
I don't mean to minimize.
We're not minimizing. I just want to be. I want to have a realistic talk about this as well, and go. If we have to wait for a couple of years, couple of days, or a week to get everything back to power, you know, assuming you're safe and well, you'll be okay. Mind you, if that's the case, they're not listening to us anyway because they don't have the ability to. So. That's the rest of us talking. Look, but speaking of this, here's this article I was talking about by Chris Keel. 3 stalled but doable initiatives for better phone and broadband services for the regions. Now, I was wondering, you've just said it, because we're moving away from copper lines, that means actually if you have a landline today, it's probably a digital landline anyway, eh?
Yes, yeah. Like one of the benefits of old copper lines is that they would work in a power cut.
Yeah.
Fiber doesn't.
We don't have the availability at the moment, or like do we still have copper lines that go to our houses at all, or are they all being pulled up when fiber's gone in? Is that the
they are generally being cut now. Okay. So it's basically none of the telcos really want to provision it anymore because the maintenance cost as the customer base for it gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah,
like the only people that ask me for a landline these days of any sort, like the company that I work for, all of our landlines are through the fiber network. But the only people that ask me that are the elderly or the kids of the elderly person that still wants a landline.
Right.
Everybody else is like, no, why would I want that?
Yeah.
You know, and it wouldn't help in this situation either because everything is out.
Which is why 364 days of the year, we're happy to have this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one day of the year, and it's not just one day, I am minimizing it and I'm not meaning it in a bad way, but the one day of the year this doesn't work, it's not necessarily the time to go, wow, what can we do to go back to the way things were? So it's sort of, it's not warranting. But look, actually, Chris Keel comes up with some other ideas. Cyclone Gabrielle exposed drawbacks in our communication networks, infuriating and frightening people in hard-hit Hawke's Bay, but also raising questions about our overall telecommunications resilience nationwide. Because I guess what is fair, not to negate my own point, is if the government has decided to move away from copper, then actually there does need to be something in place which will then supply communications when there's power cuts. Like I don't think it's okay or safe or wise to have no way of communicating, because like if there were still the copper lines, you could be saying to those people in Gisborne, well, if you've chosen to move away from them, that's one thing. But if the government has said this doesn't exist anymore, then there's got to be other things that they put in place to make it more secure. So I get that. There's Starlink installs. $2,000 government grants for Starlink installs. In December, the government announced the remote users scheme. It said remote rural users lacking decent broadband could apply for a $2,000 grant towards setup and installation costs of a suitable broadband solution. That's one thing they could do. The next thing they could do, scroll, sort out the trade-off for a free 5G spectrum. In October, the Digital Economy and Communications Minister David Clark announced that there would be no 5G spectrum option. The government would forego a windfall. The Crown realised $259 million from the 4G bids in 2014 in favour of a direct allocation of 5G-friendly airwaves to the mobile network players, that is, giving it to them for free. You understand that anymore, Cherry, being sort of in and around that world?
A little bit. Anything to do with electromagnetic spectrum, usually there's an auction where you can buy frequencies. It's
kind of like radio.
It's very similar. Basically exactly the same idea. But to operate in those very, very high frequencies, they're licensed and that sort of thing. That's why people can't bring in signal boosters from China and stuff like that. It all has to be licensed and it all has to be on the right frequency. But yeah, as far as the ramifications of doing it for free, I don't know.
All right. And the other thing that suggested is extend UFB fiber ultra-fast broadband and fiber. The 12-year multi-billion ultra-fast broadband fiber rollout officially wrapped up in December. Oh, is that right? So that means if you move house now, you have to pay for it. Because I've been to 2 houses in Dunedin, and both places I got fiber installed for nothing. So does that mean if
it blows my mind that people haven't jumped on that personally? But yeah, I guess we're not talking about the main centres. We're talking about like the rural areas are underserved by fiber just because of their remoteness and that sort of thing. And getting broadband solutions to more rural areas continues to be a challenge.
But in this instance, with what we're going on right now, fiber still requires power. So that wouldn't be a solution for this, but it could be a solution for the overall communication package.
I mean, the only thing that I can really think of as far as something that would be resilient enough in this sort of circumstance is some sort of satellite uplink, regional satellite uplink station,
right?
Powered by big generators and batteries and solar and that sort of thing. And I don't know how practical that is. Do we have access to a communication satellite that can be above New Zealand that can deal with this sort of stuff? Our own geosynchronous Starlink setup. We have rocket labs. Is this something that can be looked at?
But why would we do that if we could just utilize Starlink? Should we explain what Starlink is in case people don't really know? They've heard the word, but do you want to give us 10 seconds on it or 30 seconds on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Starlink is under one of Elon's companies, SpaceX. The idea is that they put up what I refer to as a freight train of small disposable satellites that orbit the Earth really, really quickly. And the idea is the moment that they're overhead, you can get broadband from space. So famously, they had a lot of uplinks operating in the Ukraine and that sort of thing. There's the idea that in countries with really authoritarian regimes that block internet access, you could get these Starlink terminals and get internet to people. But you don't need the infrastructure. It's a small portable satellite dish, and it just collects to these satellites as they whiz overhead. You need a lot of them up there. For a lot of satellite communications, the idea is that you put up a satellite that just stays over your area. It casts over a huge bubble, say over New Zealand, and one satellite just sits above us and follows us around. Starlink is the other way. It just moves around the globe. They're very obvious when they go overhead. I know people that do night sky photography that loathe them. because
Oh,
they'll
really?
just ruin shots as they go through.
So there you go. There's the real-time New Zealand right now with Starlink satellites, and it looks like they're, obviously up in Cromwell and
God,
Central
there's
Otago.
so many of them.
Yeah, I was actually just trying to figure out how to go out because it looked even scarier when we were having the full picture. There we go.
Yeah.
And look,
And
Antarctica.
that's the issue with something like that. I think if you see those great big lines,
Like that one?
that's Starlink, I think.
Oh, so I thought that this is Starlink's map.
Oh,
This is Starlink.
Because they travel in groups. So maybe one dot is a group of them.
So I Googled Starlink satellite map. So that's what I Googled, and then I clicked on live Starlink satellite and coverage map. I'm assuming they're all them. Surely. Because if this is the map.
I mean, look at those big bright lines, though.
Yeah, look, see? They're called Starlink. Starlink.
God, there's more of them than I thought there were.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So there you go, like going across Africa, for example, right now.
Yeah, so what's that big freight train there? Yeah,
well, that's all Starlink, but
that's
these
a
are
line
all,
of Starlink.
Yep, but these are all Starlinks as well. Starlink. They're all of them are.
Yeah,
massive.
Might have to have a look at that myself.
Yeah, all right. So that's what that is, and so I guess what I was asking is, because that already exists on some level, why would we get a localized one? Is it just that we can then own it and we could say, fuck you, Elon level, $8 a month?
Yeah, KiwiSat, because we have to have a Kiwi in the name. We've got our own rocket company and Rocket Labs. Let's do it ourselves.
Pretty amazing, actually, isn't it?
Yep.
The amount of stuff that's up there.
Up until the spaceship crashes into it.
Literally going right now. Moving as we see them. Madness. All right. So let's also now have a look, Chewy, one more thing to do with, well, it's not one more thing, but I think you would have particularly enjoyed this. Lloyd Burr was listening to us last night as well. Forestry companies should be held accountable for man-made /lahars. Let's have a bit of a listen to what Lloyd had to say about this.
Lloyd Burr Live, the podcast.
With Lexus, experience amazing.
Now, since when did Be a Tidy Kiwi have an asterisk after it that exempted forestry companies? It's drilled into us, isn't it, from a young age that we must clean up our rubbish and dispose of it properly. It's even against the law to litter. We've got a Litter Act. It was passed in 1979. It's been updated a few times since then, which states that people can be fined up to $5,000 for littering. And if that littering that you do, if that endangers someone else's life, that fine can increase to $7,500, or you can even go to prison for a month. You can be imprisoned for a month for littering if it endangers someone's life. So why the heck can forestry companies in Tairāwhiti and Hawke's Bay and other places leave their rubbish behind? And this rubbish I'm talking about, it is the offcuts of trees, it is branches, it is bushes, it's stumps, it's sticks, damaged or wonky trees that can't be turned into timber, all the other debris and dirt and muck that's produced during deforestation. That stuff, it is called slash. And in some parts of the country, that slash, it is picked up, it is turned into mulch or wood burner pellets or other different types of products. But in Tairāwhiti and in Hawke's Bay, the forestry companies, they don't see value in doing that because they can't sell it. They told me that a few weeks ago themselves. They leave it up there in the hills. They leave it there to eventually break down amongst the seedlings that they plant of the new trees that will then turn into forestry. But when there are big rain events, though, this slash washes down the hills. It washes into the valleys and to the tributaries, into the streams, and then into the rivers. And then if there's so much rain, if there's such a big deluge, it essentially becomes a lahar. And we're not just talking about one lahar. We're talking about lots of different lahar in each of those river valleys. And these lahar take out anything in their path, like what we've seen along State Highway 35 and State Highway 2. where bridges have been wiped out because the slash gets stuck behind the bridges. And these bridges, they're not designed to be dams. They're not designed to take that much of a lateral weight. So these bridges, they give way. And then farms and orchards and houses, they're also taken out. Silt, that's deposited everywhere. And then the slash makes its way into the sea and onto the seashore, and that destroys habitat for sea life. We saw this after Cyclone Hale. A whole lot of kinna and a whole lot of kuda all along the foreshore, dying and rotting. The destruction from slash, it is immense. There are so many flow-on effects, and it all comes back to the forestry companies that are essentially littering and leaving their rubbish behind. That is not on. They should not be allowed to do that. And in this instance, they should be sent the cleanup bill.
So I hope they've got deep pockets for all the bridges that they've got to build.
I like the word littering. It doesn't sound quite as offensive. I think, what did we say last night? They should be held accountable for it. But yes, littering.
There should be what's the word? Consequences,
something like that. I wanted to play that tonight as a little hat tip to you as well. You were talking about it last night, and so yep, others are talking about it as well. And yeah, it's. I mean. I guess if a company says this is biodegradable product that can then just break down and go into the earth, that's one thing, because that's true. But then I guess because obviously they're planting more trees, and then when those other fallen trees break down, it becomes mulch and stuff for those trees. So do you still hold them accountable when an act of God, as the insurance company would say, happen and sends them down the river? I think personally from last time, I'm like, maybe they should have some consequences, but yeah, I can sort of see the other side of it as well. I mean, if you have a lot of stuff in your front yard, like a couple of cars you're working on, and they get picked up by a flood and taken through another property of the house next door, you're not going to be held accountable for that. So where is the line, I guess is what I'm saying, Chewy.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that they're just ripping out the most profitable product.
Yeah.
And then just going, nah, the rest will sort itself out.
Yeah.
And it's not working.
Yeah.
It's clearly not working. Like, I'm looking at a page now that is covered with pictures of East Coast beaches covered in logs. Absolutely covered. And that was a problem before the cyclone. But every time that there's a flood, I'm going to pop one up here now.
Oh, pop one up. Go on. Pop it up. Pop it up, baby cakes.
Every time that there's a storm.
So hang on, stop. This is because of the cyclone? Or are you saying this is every day on this beach?
This is every day. This predates the cyclone. The headline there: Forestry / washed up on a beach at Tolaga Bay, New Zealand, after a flood.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that's what comes out of the hills into the streams, clipping every bridge it comes across, stacking up against all, ripping out all the cables, absolutely cannoning through people's paddocks, taking out fences, houses, farm buildings, the whole works. If someone gets swept away in that, they are screwed. It's like standing in front of a shotgun. And at what point do you go, A, that's not acceptable normally? Like, I mean, Lloyd was saying, it's against the law to litter. Not for businesses. Businesses can cover it up for as long as they want. And then eventually it gets too much and we go, oh, you shouldn't discharge fuel oil into the rivers. Maybe we need to find a better way of getting rid of offal from the freezing works. This is our point here where we go, okay, this level of destruction, waste, and just not cleaning up after yourself is not acceptable in this area anymore. You're affecting national infrastructure. You're affecting the people that work in the, live and work in the area. The forestry industry needs to come up with a better idea than this.
I agree with you. And you know me, analogy man. I'm just thinking about any other workspace. So if you were a builder and you were building a house and you left all of your crap over the property and then left the job and something happened to that crap, you would certainly be held accountable for what happened. You know what I mean? Like, so why would it be any different? So I can completely see that. And one other thing, I'm incensed that you still haven't spun your fucking screen sideways. It drives me to despair, young man. Anyway.
Wow.
I know. Look,
someone doesn't believe in vertical monitors.
Correct. I'm vertical marketing only. No, not even that. So look, straight away, I kind of go, like, this is an election year. Chippy tomorrow should signal this as a legislative change, and that would be, boom, taken on board, loved by everybody, and a good result. So Chippy, there's your legislative change for tomorrow. Communications, making them more secure, / or as I called it last night, slag, and do something about that and hold those companies more accountable for that. I look at all, you know what, this might not be the same for people around the country, but for those of us in the deep south and in cooler regions, when I see that kind of wood on the beach, I kind of go, ha, firewood. I could have they cut those up in that way and then split them, and that could do for quite a long time. So I wonder if something simple like that could happen. You get another company, you know, when companies say, we will get rid of your crap for nothing because we can make money off it. You see that with things like biofuel companies. They go and get all the oil from takeaway bars and stuff and convert it because there's a cost for the oil. Surely there's a business model here for a company to come in and say, we'll take away all your down trees, we'll turn it into firewood, we'll sell it on, we'll do something with it. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be a model there.
Look at this on screen.
Yep.
Local focus. East Coast seeking solution to slash floods.
Looks good being the right way around.
A month after massive deluge.
Right.
6th of June, 2018.
Right. So this has been going on
a problem for so long.
Yeah.
And nobody has gone, maybe we should do something about it. Because it's the East Coast. Nobody cares. And people are making money out of forestry.
They care when they want to go there in summer to Tolaga Bay to have a holiday, but that's about the only time.
Yep.
Can we say thank you and good evening to Nick? Nick, thank you for the super chat. Apparently there was a law started last night. I'm not sure who started it, but there are late fees due. And I think we decided that if you were here past 9:15, it was $5. And past 9:45, it was $10. And past 10 o'clock, if we're still talking, it's $20. So Kooky has said it's past 9:45.
This is financially devastating for Kooky because he came up with the rule and he's always late. I don't know how he'll financially recover from this.
Either way, we appreciate the super chat, Kooky, and you're a beautiful man. Also, one of our patrons as well. So, you know, Kooky's double dipping. It might be a time to mention right now. If you're thinking about supporting us, you can do it, as you see on the bottom of the screen at patreon.com/big hairy news. At the moment, Kooky is basically paying for the whole show through Patreon and late fees, apparently. We're going to move on. Is there anything in the chat there? I know we've both been kind of talking and not really focusing too much on the chat. Is there anything we want to get to in the chat before we move on to talk about David Seymour almost backtracking?
Yep, absolutely. Where are we? Okay. God, our chat's kind of outpaced a lot of this.
Yeah.
So V-Bunch here mentions that there is an excellent article on the newsroom about co-governance. I'm going to put that link up in the chat because, yeah, I read it today and it is very, very good.
Well, but speaking of that, tomorrow, just as a reminder, we've got Byron Clark with us for the hour. So his book, Fear, is released, I think, today, if not today, tomorrow. And we'll have him with us for a full hour. There is a good portion of conversation at the moment about those who were vaccine lunatic deniers and COVID crazies now spinning to co-governance and spinning to climate change. So maybe even though we may not focus on it tomorrow night, there could be something that we also bring into that conversation tomorrow night.
Yeah. David he's gone one better, a Ministry of Greenworks.
Oh.
So it looks like he's quoting a headline for a story there. I might have to go and hunt that one out.
Cool.
But yeah, look, in times where we've had big infrastructure programs, maybe it is time for some sort of Kiwi build for infrastructure. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we could do it for infrastructure around, like, I don't know. There's sort of, let me just work this out. Now there's wastewater and there's stormwater And there's drinking water. So there's kind of 3 different kinds of
Three of them.
waters. Yeah, there's sort of 3 of them. Maybe there could be some
three
kind of-
waters and bridges and telecommunications.
Yeah. So maybe they can come up with some kind of plan and not allow the alt-right to set a narrative as to it being racially charged, and that when Auckland floods because of their infrastructure, the not being able to handle the deluge, and we're told that Gisborne already had a sticky tape together water structure and water infrastructure, maybe someone can come up with a plan that could help that from central government. I mean, maybe. It's probably crazy talk. I'm probably thinking way outside the box too much here, Joe, but if someone could come up with some kind of plan or initiative or policy to help like all 3 of those different kinds of waters, that would be helpful at this current time, I would think. But I'm just spitballing. I've got nothing really,
Instantly, I'm not going to look into it, but it feels too hard.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So that's a vibe of it that I'm picking.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
A new name in the chat here, Isbay Hudson. I hope that's right. The main Wairoa Bridge was taken out in Bowler. It probably took them 2 years to rebuild. Until the new bridge was built, there was a barge that ferried cars across the river. I hope we have better options than that now. But yeah, I think that really just underlines the East Coast gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
And I hope they get looked after. I don't care how many people live there. It's, what do you do? Just cast a region aside and go, nah, it's too hard. There's not enough of you. The Bunch here says, I know someone whose 98-year-old mother had been evacuated in Napier and it took ages for them to get in touch. She was very worried about her because she didn't know if she was safe at all.
Yeah.
And when there's stories in the news going, there's however many was it 1,400 people that the police were trying to keep track of that hadn't been heard of. People wondering if they're safe and that sort of thing. And yeah, that when communication is down, what do you do? And Craig Crabstyle, I love that name. I agree, Chewy. Business takes precedence over vulnerable people. Absolutely, because how can you turn a profit out of vulnerable people unless you break them down into their component parts?
Yeah.
Which we're not ready for that yet. And I have just been sent this. There is a still from a drone shot of just what that forestry slash has done. So you can see there it's just stacked up against the railway line, taking out that bridge, both sides there. And here's another thing just in the top corner that we were talking about the other night. Industrial stuff on low-lying areas next to the sea.
Can you zoom in? Or is that a video? Look, so that's the bridge is gone. The rail bridge is gone. Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
Or is that a video? Or is it just still you've got right there?
That's a still from the video, but
Okay,
I think I can bring up the video maybe.
No, that's right. I mean, I was just going to say. So that's the vehicle bridge is intact, but the railway bridge is out, and that's months. That's months and months and months to get that sorted out. Now, I guess here's the thing. Yeah, it's a bit like, when you do something stupid and you injure yourself and you go, oh crap, if only I hadn't done that stupid thing. That's one thing. But if through no fault of your own you injure yourself, it doesn't feel quite as bad. Like if that bridge had failed just because of the water, like it was really an act of God, as the insurance company says, failed because of the flood, and that was it. That's one thing. But because it looks like it's failed because of the slash from the forestry companies, that just feels so much worse because it's an event that didn't need to necessitate maybe that bridge collapsing. But because of what the forestry groups did and how they treat the stuff they don't want, that seems to be, and I guess I got to be careful saying this, but it appears to be one of the reasons. Like if it wasn't the slash, then both bridges you would think would be gone. So it looks like the slash has hit the first one, taken it out, dissipated slightly and left the second one in place. So when you have an incident like this that you think could have been avoided if company X had have looked after their, for want of a better word, thanks to what we just heard Lloyd say, their litter, then that just feels even more of a slap in the face.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Shall we have a look at Mr. We've got a couple of things to get through yet. Let's have a look at Mr. Seymour. I think this is the early show. I'm pretty sure that the AM show has a show before that, like called the AM show or something. And Mr. Seymour was on it this morning, and can you see the headline? David Seymour says it's hard to fault the government response to Cyclone Gabrielle. Huh.
Hang on, wait, what now?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm watching this clip and I'm kind of going, okay, so David Seymour's learned his lesson. He's read the room. He's had all his advisors go, it's not a good look saying that the government shouldn't be doing all these things to help people. And at one point, he basically does say this, and it's almost like he's read the room and he's pulling it back, but then he just can't quite help himself.
Aotearoa New Zealand is under a national state of emergency, just the third time.
Oh, God help me. Now, speaking of infrastructure and internet,
is under a national state of emergency.
This is going to drive me wild. I'm going to lose my shit, Joey. 1 gig, a 1 gig internet line. We have a 1 gig internet line.
Well, while we're waiting for this,
put it down to 360p and see what happens. It'll look terrible, but maybe it'll work.
V-Bunch agrees with me on Ministry of Works.
Emergency, just the third time in our country's history that this has happened, and it comes as a result of the devastation caused by Cyclone Gabrielle, which is still ravaging Tika Maui.
Oh God, I'm gonna kill someone. I'm gonna throttle someone. Vodafone, what the hell are you doing with my fiber? Hi, Chewy. Good night.
Hi. Look at that little spinny circle there. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to just actually bring up what my speed was, but then that'll probably show my ISP. Right. The other thing that happened today that someone who looks like she has read the room is Heather du Plessis-Allan heaping praise upon Christopher Hipkins.
ZB. Well, Chris Hipkins is impressive with the cyclone.
That's so good. Yes.
I apologize,
I had
people.
this broken clock once, and it was right twice a day.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, if you wanted to, you could take this link and stick it up here. No, you could actually do it from your end. But we'll try one more time. I'm not going to do this all night. I do apologize about this.
Here to discuss is the leader of the ACT Party, David Seymour, who joins us from Wellington.
Who has just woken up. Okay, so this is what we do. We read the article instead. ACT Party leader David Seymour questions on why the state of emergency was declared on Tuesday morning rather than the previous day before the full wrath of Cyclone Gabrielle. He asked Emergency Management Minister Kieran McNulty on Tuesday, what was the difference today that wasn't true the previous day on Monday? McNulty said on Tuesday the declaration was made as soon as local civil defence groups told the National Emergency Management Agency that it was necessary. So he's been going around the town asking this question. Why wasn't it done on Monday? And the answer is because the advice came from the local civil defence agencies on Tuesday. So can we stop asking that fucking question? That's why it was done on Tuesday. Other than that, Seymour told AM, quote, it's hard to fault a government trying to react as quickly as possible like everybody else as the waters rose and their homes were in danger. The ACT leader also told AM why his party opposed Parliament being suspended on Wednesday and on Tuesday, which was because I can't ask my questions. That was the sum total of it.
Breaking.
We won't play it because it's just going to keep freezing up. I apologize about that. It's the problem is, guys, just so you know, is that there's not enough hours in the day. I would have to go and record all of those separately and get them down. And we just wish the internet would work and work well. We'll try one more time with HDPA.
Clone, isn't he? Come on, admit it. He is doing an excellent job. He has not put a foot wrong. He's where he's supposed to be. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. I mean, he was in Auckland when it was thought that Auckland was going to bear the brunt of the cyclone.
By contrast, Mr. Luxon was in Wellington, is what she goes on to say. And then when it proved that Auckland wasn't going to be the hardest hit part, Chippy went to the part that was hardest hit after going back to Wellington. So very positive reaction from Heather du Plessis-Allan, which is very surprising. As you say, a broken clock can be right twice a day, but I do also wonder about the reading the room. Last night we talked about David Seymour reading the room very badly, having a Simon Bridges size mistake, in my opinion, that he came out to criticize the government who the National Party has supported their moves. Heather du Plessis-Allan, who can't show her disdain enough for the Labour Party, has come out saying they're doing the right thing. So there is this outlier, right, which is David Seymour, and his outlier-ish is a huge mistake. I mean, for those of us on the left, I'm like, yes, keep doing it, please, because you're driving people away from you and your message, just like Simon Bridges lost everybody. But from a political nous point of view, it's actually something that's a very poor political decision that he's moving, because he's not reading the room well, and he is actually screwing it up. He's screwing it up for his party, which I'm okay with, but that's what's going on.
Because he's a Labour Party plant.
He is a Labour Party plant.
God, say that 6 times quick.
Doing a speed test while we're talking, because I'm really fucking frustrated, Vodafone New Zealand.
I just jumped over to Kate Hawkesby's Twitter to see how she was doing. She's not very active on Twitter, actually.
Oh, really?
It's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So my download speed at the moment is 932.86 megabytes per second, but that's not quite enough to play freaking audio. Oh, the other thing,
it's because you've got 4 billion tabs open.
Yes, I don't actually. I don't have a lot. I'm not you. I'm not addicted to my tabs. Totally addicted to tabs. I'm actually putting my computer in for a bit of a cleanup tomorrow, so we'll see what happens tomorrow night. I'm a little bit scared because I'm not technically minded. My computer's going in to get some a new hard drive put on it tomorrow and some more USB ports, and I'm going to have to, after tonight's show, Chewy, get this right here, masking tape, and put tape around the cables and label them, and put tape on where they go and label them, because I've got this fear that tomorrow afternoon when I get my computer back, all that has to work is the audio, the video, that's it, right? And I have a fear that I'm not going to be able to get it going. So I'm going to go all boomerish, and after the show tonight, I'm going to start labeling some cables, labeling some ports, and make sure that tomorrow night I can keep it going again. Anywho, so David Seymour passed a tiny bit of praise to the government by saying you can't really question what they're doing at the moment with the response, at the same time as saying, but government should have been open because it's the end of democracy, and they've taken over in a Marxist campaign of hate. That was how he sort of ended that conversation. And when you see the headlines of that story, it looks like he's going to be sensible. And he kind of says one thing in there that's sort of sensible, but then goes back to the tried and true. Heather du Plessis-Allan basically spent 2.5 minutes praising Christopher Hipkins, his actions and what he's doing at the moment. Now, whether that's genuine commentary or whether she's reading the room, understanding that the criticism of the response at the moment probably won't go well amongst her listening audience, even though they're not Labour supporters. I don't know. But as we said with Mr. Luxon yesterday, if he says the right things, we congratulate when he says the right things. And, for one sentence out of 20, Seymour said the right thing. And in one commentary, Heather du Plessis-Allan seemed to say the right thing, Chewy.
Yeah. It's still weird. I feel like up is down.
And down is rejected. Let us say thank you to our patrons. We love having you on board. Thank you for being a part of the team. If you want to support the work we're doing and help us keep the lights on a little bit, it's very easy. Head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. If you're watching at the start of the show, it's got nothing to do with this particular show, but I'm working with Mr. Vintage now in one of my other podcasts, and they've given out a pretty amazing special, a 20% discount, and I'm more than happy to share it with you guys as well, the news about that. If you want to get all the details, then just, if you're watching this on demand, or if you're watching this now, just joining us, once this goes to demand, just scroll back to the start of the episode and I actually play the advert looking sort of remarkably like this, actually, a bit like this, what I'm doing right now. And other than that, I think we're done for a night. Now, remember, tomorrow night, we have Byron Clark coming to join us for the hour. Now, I've already got wind that there are some of those groups who may not like Byron very much will be perhaps crashing our party tomorrow night. That's fine. We don't mind. But let me just say this tonight and put it out there and be really, really clear. We don't typically ban people from our chats and from our broadcasts unless you turn into the worst form of yourself. You are welcome to join us tomorrow night and ask a question and make a point and make a comment. We're not scared to mention or ask or put up contrary points to our own. But if you're an asshole, then and if you're particularly offensive and you're particularly not even difficult, we don't mind difficult. I'll put it this way. If you suggest that the Holocaust didn't happen, then you won't stay in our chat for very long. If you suggest that the Christchurch mosque shootings was an inside job, you won't stay in our chat for very long. And if you abuse anybody within our chat, you won't stay in our chat for very long. If you are cordial and you can ask your question even though you don't agree with what you're hearing or seeing, then you're welcome to join in and you're welcome to be a part of this. So I don't know if Byron's done any live conversations that have involved interaction from the audience. Tomorrow night, we will be doing that. As always, Chewy and I will control the interaction from the audience. But I think it might be the only one where he's potentially been able to be asked questions from the audience. I'm not sure about that, but that's certainly what we'll do tomorrow. But of course, we've got him in for us to talk to him. The bulk of the time will be used up by us, and you're more than welcome to watch or be involved. Anything else you want to know about that, Joey?
No, that's like I'll say the same thing I've said when we've had potentially contentious chat sessions. If you've got a point to make it well. Be prepared to back yourself up. But yeah, have respect for everybody here.
Just so you know, just so we're really clear on this, when we say we don't really ban people, up until the night Jacinda Ardern announced her retirement, up until that night, in the first 220-ish episodes of this, we'd banned one person. And that was a person who started talking about the Christchurch mosque shooting being a false flag. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry. That's done.
Yep.
Then on the night Jacinda Ardern retired, funny how all the trolls came out of the closet, and on that night, about 4 people got banned. So really, if you want to come on board and if you want to pass an opinion and if you want to ask a question and you want to be a part of the conversation, even if you don't agree with anything that's being said from this side of the camera, you're more than welcome to. But as soon as you turn into a see you next Thursday, you're basically gone. And as I said, we don't do that to people, but when certain things are said and done, that will, and I don't mean trigger like I'm getting triggered. I mean trigger as in put into action a banning of those people. Easy, right? And look, there are people in our chat right now who are regulars going, oh, look, boot them out if they cause problems. Yes. And to answer Gareth, yes, Byron's on live. You can put that up if you want. Yes, Byron's with us from 9 o'clock live. We will be talking to Byron and you will have an opportunity, I guess, to talk to him. I haven't actually organized with Byron that you'd have an opportunity to talk to him. But if you're in the chat, if you're in the live stream and you want to ask a question, you're more than welcome. If it's really, really, really busy, which it might well be in the chat, to be really blunt with you, not to try and use this as a grifting type thing, probably super chats and stuff will get priority. Because if you watch the chats at any stage, it flies by, right? Whereas super chats and stuff, even if it's I think you can do a 50-cent one, that'll stay in our thing and it'll get highlighted differently. So I'm not telling you have to pay for questions tomorrow. I'm not saying that. I'm just, again, being honest with you, saying that if it gets busy tomorrow night, those people will probably get priority, mostly because we'll be able to find them more easily. That's what I'm saying. Anywho, I think we're done. Yep. I think we're done.
As Pete says here, hit a like on the way out. Share us around to people that you think might find us interesting.
Yeah, and follow us on
Patreon.
Twitter. Yep, follow us on Twitter, because on Twitter tomorrow during the day I'll probably put out 2 or 3 times. Byron's coming up, and I'm putting it out there because I know people will want to hear from him and speak to him about his work and his research into the alt-right and the conspiracy theorists. Right, so that'll be the conversation tomorrow night from 9 o'clock. Don't know how long it'll go for. Somewhere between half an hour and an hour and a half, probably. It'll be really in Byron's court as to how long he wants to hang out and do stuff. But as you now know, this is a Monday to Friday show, 9 p.m. kickoff, and we have Friday night shows on occasion when the need suits. And having a one-off conversation with an interview tomorrow night, the need suits, or the suit needs, anyway, it's going to work. So we're doing it tomorrow night. And also, we're making up for only being here 2 nights last week. Hey, Chewy, that's the other thing.
Yeah, we're making it back slowly.
All right, team. Thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate you all. And Seymour fella, it seems like a bit of a diddle, such a good word. I like that word. We'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Byron with us in studio, in his own studio, in our studio, in your house. Just like that. We'll catch you from then. Be safe through the day, and we'll see you tomorrow from 9 p.m. for a special edition of Big Hairy News here on Big Hairy News. Hey, Root.
Cheers, team.